Welcome to Jatasa University, where our goal is to empower nonprofits through free educational content. These short videos are all provided by trusted partners within our network as well, so each topic will be relevant to every organization, regardless of size. Let's dive right in. This month, we're featuring Bobby from Boundless Analytics Finance, who help organizations turn messy, scattered finances into calm, reliable systems. Clean data, clear reporting, and numbers that leaders can actually trust and act on. Let's pass things over to Bobby and get started with the content.
Thank you for the introduction. My name is Bobby. We're going to look at how you could use AI at your nonprofit. Almost every nonprofit now uses AI. Most aren't getting much out of it. At least that's what I commonly hear. Some of the other common things I hear is, they're not sure what's available, or they feel like they're not using it at its full capacity. The reality of it is that AI moves really fast. There's also a lot of hype out there, and it could feel very overwhelming for folks. I'm hoping that this presentation really brings some reality to what's available with AI. I'm hoping I could strip out some of that hype out and really show you what's possible, and also where it's headed. I also, my goal here also is by the end of it, I'm hoping that, you'll know where your org is, sitting with AI, and, what's a next step that's worth taking for you. So let me jump here. Yeah. So as I noted, data is moving, AI and what's going on with AI is moving very fast. And the data shows that 81% of those who use AI kind of use it here and there or ad hoc, right? And only about 7% said it made a strategic difference for their org. The gap between using AI and AI making a difference, as you can see, is pretty wide, right? And when I say makes a difference, is that it's made a tangible difference in how they operate their nonprofits, or it's made a tangible difference in their overhead, whether it's their specific time or it's their output, what have you. So the ones that, the orgs that are using AI and it's making a real big difference, they're, using the same tools, right? So it's not like they're using something special. They're using, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, the same thing anyone has access to. The real difference is the systems around how they use it. So, the way I like to describe it, as you can see, the title of this presentation is called The Climb. I like to describe it as a ladder, right? And everyone's on the ladder. The question really is, how far up are you on that ladder? And how far up do you want to go? If you remember one thing, a way to think about AI is a brilliant assistant with no memory and no judgment. So by no memory, I mean almost all the time you have to give it some sort of context, whether it's something you have to give it context continually, or it's something that it has access to. Sometimes that access to that context can feel somewhat instantaneous, but you need to set that up. You need to set that system up. So how that kind of works, right? Some of that context that it can have is, your missions, programs, numbers, tone. You can really drive a lot of that information, feed that into AI. to get specific output out. So, way to describe it is feed it well, and the output is going to be better, right? So no judgment. So you're going to have to check its work. So by judgment, I mean it's not going to know if what it's giving you or what the output is really is, shaped well for your client or whoever it's interfacing for. It doesn't know that person. It's AI. So it's really important that you're checking the work both on making sure it's output the correct information, but also that it's shaped correctly for whoever is going to be interfacing with that information. So the one thing about AI that you're going to notice is that it's really confident, and the difficult part that some people run into, it's also very confident when it's wrong, right? A person decides what's right before anything goes out. That's how I like to structure it, is that anything that comes out of AI, a person should be checking it and determining that it's right before it goes out. So, give it context, check its work. Everything else is those two ideas at different levels. And we'll get into that now. All right. So start with grant writing. A really great place to start when you're at this rung is grant writing. It's a really high value use for most nonprofits when they're using AI. And the reason for that is it's repetitive in structure, custom in detail, has the same bones but different specifics, and that's exactly AI's strength there. What it can do is it can take a 3-hour grant, grant draft that usually takes you about 3 hours to do, and it can boil it down to about 45 minutes, right? And it's just an example, but it's definitely possible, and it's common. Just, quick on how that's done. You have to give it context, which we spoke about earlier. So that would be something like pasting in your mission, pasting in, past outcomes, giving it funder priorities, and when you give it that context and you prompt it to produce what you need, it can send you a first draft in a first draft statement or first draft document that will be in your tone. And it's really good to specify what type of tone you want. However, AI now is really good to kind of determine the tone by looking at whatever you provided. So if you give it your missions, your past outcomes, past communication with that funder, it has a really good way of pulling out your tone, but you should always check. A good prompt flags where it needs more data instead of making it up. So one thing that's really good is that when you prompt AI, and we'll get into this a little bit later, that you ask it to flag anything that it needs more data to do well. So if it has any gaps in what it's doing, instead of filling those gaps by what it thinks is best, it will ask you questions or request more data to fill those gaps. And you can have AI do that when you prompt it to do the work. And then what's really important is the human pass. So this should always be AI drafts it and a human reviews it, right? It saves hours, but you also keep the judgment and a human in the loop, right? So which tool for which job? Really, they all really overlap more than they differ. You really only need one to start. Just some general, uses for each one, but these really, they're always adapting. So Claude is known for its writing skills. It's really great at writing. It's really great at maintaining long documents. ChatGPT is really well-rounded. It has a ton of features. However, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity also have a ton of features. Gemini is great if you live in Google Workspace, and we can get a little bit more into that a little at the end of the slides or presentation. But a lot of people use Google Workspace, so this is a really great way to get AI integrated into your day to day, right? Perplexity. A lot of people love it for research. It's actually, really good for research. It allows you, or it's really good at noting sources. So when you're doing deep research and you want your sources intact or checkable sources, Perplexity is great for that. But really, you shouldn't overthink it. Pick one that, if you're not using it, pick one this week. Have one real task in mind, work with AI to get that task done. Next slide. So this is, we're going to get into prompting, and this, I spoke a little bit about this before, but I want to get deeper into it. So really at this rung, and all rungs when you're working with AI, is the skill is in the asking. So what separates one thing that separates people who get a lot of value out of it is how they ask, right? And this is also this will also coincide with the context. What context you have given AI access to, whether it's context, as I noted, right in the moment that you're giving it in that moment, or if it has already access to your org. And that's something we'll discuss a little more later too, how to kind of give it continual access. Now, a weak prompt would look like, write a grant proposal for my nonprofit. Really weak. It will be very generic. You'll probably have to spend an hour rewriting it. Now, a strong prompt would look like, you're helping a youth literacy nonprofit. Funder is a family foundation focused on early education. We're going for 50K max. Here's our mission and last year's outcomes. You paste that in. Draft the need statement in a warm, plain tone. Flag anything you'd want more data on. So the last piece is what I was speaking on before, is that write a quick sentence or two that asks it to flag anything that it has questions on or needs more data on to do well. One thing is, draft a need statement in a warm, plain tone. Obviously, you can have it draft in whatever tone you want. And like I said, if you're giving it context up front, it kind of pulls that tone out itself. However, it's also great to just tell it exactly what type of tone you want. So just quick, the recipe is who it's for, plus the context, plus the tone, plus permission to flag any gaps, right? So there's some guardrails. So it's really, it's really important to think about this stuff. I think all nonprofits, everyone needs to decide how much they want to give AI in this moment. So it's really good to think about these things. One thing is sensitive data. Think about that when you're working with AI, you're going to potentially, unless you don't do it or you don't give it, but there could be personal donor or client details. If you are going to be giving it personal donor or client details or what have you, the paid business versions are usually the best to use because they have stronger privacy features. So number two, person in the loop. Like I said, AI really has no judgment. So, you can feel like it has judgment when you're working with it, but it's really important to keep a person always reviewing its work, and anything that goes out should be reviewed by a person before it goes out. Human voice, or protect the human voice. So this is something you're going to notice when you're working with AI. It's gonna feel like AI. Maybe you won't notice at first, but when you're working with it for a while, you'll notice things that AI, the ways it talks, certain terms it uses, that starts to feel very AI. So one thing that's really important is that you protect the human voice. Your edits to what it outputs is going to be important. So you edit it to add your own tone, your own human voice to it. So this week, one thing you can do is open one tool, paste your last grant draft, and ask it to find the 3 weakest points. It takes about 10 minutes. So this is really great. AI is really great at analyzing, your work and pulling out any recommendations or any gaps it finds or anything that, that you ask it to find within your data, your writing, your, what have you. And, don't outright just full on trust it. I think if it points out a weakness, look at it, discuss it with the AI, and really improve, or use that data that you get back to improve. Okay, rung 2. So as we get into this, you might feel like, isn't rung 2 just rung 1 with a saved project? No, and we'll get into why. So a personal project on your login is still rung 1. And so by personal project, I mean many of the AIs you use, you can create projects within them that will hold memory and context. So if you're using those features, I would still call that rung 1, which is still really great to use. And this bolsters AI's context. And it's what I was describing before, is that it gives it, instead of you having to paste things all the time, to AI, you can use projects and specific features to give it continuous data, access to continuous data. It's not the only way to do it, and it's also not entirely the best way to do it, but it's the easiest way to do it, and it's and they're getting better and better at providing these features for their users, and that would be Claude, OpenAI, Perplexity, Gemini, what have you, right? So really the leap to rung 2 is AI becomes something the whole team shares. So a decision, not just a toggle, right? So 5 logins become a team plan, a seat per person, shared workspaces, org knowledge is pinned within the workspace or the wide AI environment for your org. It's governed by you or the admin person. The privacy settings are on, and someone's in control. So admin, you, what have you. So it changes from me to us. So rung 1 would be one person. You're using memory features like projects or uploading context. You have strong prompts. Rung 2 is really bringing that to org-wide. And when you bring it org-wide, there's specific features that you would activate, and also specific protocols or policy, org knowledge, what have you. You would get into these shared workspaces with your AI, so it can work and it has the context across your org. Let's get into how it works. So how it works. Left, what you feed it. Usually you only feed this once. However, you'll notice, or you'll find that you will be continually updating this, because as you're working with AI, you will notice that you're continually getting better and you're improving things. So you upload your mission, your programs, and there's many ways you can upload this. Excel, it could read Excel, PDFs, Word documents, what have you. But you would upload this stuff, what your mission is, your programs, a few past grant reports. You can have a document that says our voice, and it just describes your voice, key policies, what have you. Those go into a workspace that holds the context. Like I said, many of these Claude, OpenAI, what have you, have shared workspaces that this memory can be uploaded into. That then can, you can have projects within that workspace. However, when you have a shared workspace, your whole org has the AI for your whole org is running off the same context you're giving it. And then within that, you can have individual contexts at a per project level. And you could look at, AI as, or these, Claude, OpenAI, or these different services as there's a shared workspace. And then within those shared workspaces, there are projects that can hold specific knowledge just for that specific project. So everything is encompassed in the org knowledge, and then you could break things out in specific knowledge, specific context for specific projects or things you're working on, right? So once everything's in a shared workspace, then you can have things like on-brand grant drafts, consistent donor letters, and the big one is you can ask it questions. It can access those docs, always have access to it, and it can give you access straight from the source. Example is you would ask something like, what does our gift policy say about stock donations? Something like that, right? It could just pull it really fast. The payoff is no more blank page, no more re-explaining, and everything comes out sounding like your organization. Now, I say that with a caveat because AI holds memory and context, but it doesn't hold it forever, meaning if you open up a new chat or what have you, there's memory it quickly has access to, but sometimes it needs a few minutes to go back, read what you tell it to read. So just know that at times it needs to go fetch specific memory. But this is a really great way to have it access that memory within seconds or minutes, versus you having to prompt it, right? Or continue to upload. All right, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this. So one workspace, your whole team has access to it. And I described this before where, the workspace itself is holding the org-wide data and information that you've uploaded into it. Now, within that workspace, you can have specific projects. One way to do it, and it's not the only way, but one way to do it is each one of those projects can be for a different department within your org. So let's say one of the projects is for development, and within that, it has a unique set of data that your development team can access, right? So each project would have its own unique set of data, documents, or what have you, that whoever has access to that project can use with AI, right? So some examples would be, your development team would be able to, draft grants. It would be able to do things like funder research. Your board or your executive directors would have information for your board, where it could draft things for the board. Programs would have specific impact information or specific data on your outcomes and your program outcomes, so it could do write-ups on those. Comms team can do donor letters, newsletters that are on brand. So it's the same workspace, different people, each have their own seat and login, and you could set their permission. So what do they have access to? Is it specific projects? Is it org-wide? Is it all projects? What have you? We spoke about this earlier. Judgment should live in humans' hands. AI is great for repetitive drafting, research, summarizing, things, like that. It should lean into. What it shouldn't lean into is work with real financial or legal consequences. Things like books, bill pay, reconciliation, compliance. Those things should really still live with a human, your accountants. And many of those tools have their own integrated AI features. So one way to look at it is, AI's job is to give you back time for the work only you can do, which would be things like mission, donors, programs, things like that, right? So rung 3, AI that does the work. So towards the top of the ladder, and clearly where things are headed, is automation. So rungs 1 and 2, AI advises and you do the work. Rung 3, AI carries a multi-step task, start to finish, with a person supervising and a human always in the loop. So some examples of what's real today. Klarna's AI support agent, or Klarna built an AI support agent that handles a volume of about 700 to 800 full-time agents. It saved them about tens of millions of dollars. JP Morgan runs about 450 AI processes today. An example of that is through AI, they're able to create a 5-page pitch deck in about 30 seconds. And some statistics are showing one research firm expects about 40% of business software to have agents built in by the end of this year, up from under 5% a year ago. How an agent actually works. So let's go through a real example. Monthly donor acknowledgement is a great example to use. Let's go through it start to finish. So the first step would be a trigger happens. Example, that would be the month ends or a gift or donation gets posted. Step 2 would be the AI agent gathers new gifts from your donor system. That can trigger, or it can do that either on a specific date or time, or you can have it doing it continually or daily. You could really set whatever works for your org. Now, once it sees that new gift, it drafts a personalized thank you and a summary catered to that specific person or that specific donation. Then it prompts you to review and approve or edit before anything goes out. This is the important part. Now, the last part would be sending out the letter. You can either do that or you can have AI do that after it gets your approval. And then it updates your records after it sends it out, right? So to go back to that really important part, step 4, that's the human checkpoint. It's really important that, there's a human in the loop, looks at the grant letter, says, okay, this either is approved or needs to be edited, what have you, and then approves it. And as mentioned, step 5, you can send it out or you can have AI send it out. Now, what it really takes to get this done, and really the work is in the setup. There's going to be a few connected systems. It needs clean data. There has to be clear rules set up. And also a person needs to be in that loop who's going to be reviewing that work. The setup takes work. And this is why this is higher up in the rung, because there's, a system needs to be built around this. So building one today, what it takes to do that, I think the question would be, well, how do I actually build one, right? And, easiest by far is probably through the tools you already pay for. So CRM, your email, what have you, is or whatever CRM or email features you're using now, it's most likely already building this, or adding agents to their features coming up, right? So that would, if you have access to one already that has agents, it would just be to turn those on and using their protocols to get it set up. However, building your own custom one could be also a great place to start. And I think actually it's probably the best place where most nonprofits should start, because it would give you the backbone of how these things work. Because not only can you use agents for grant writing or your CRM work or your email work, but for a number of other processes, right? So the custom builds would take things like Zapier. It would require for a multi-step agent, it will require you setting up whatever systems that you want, cleaning up the data within that system, and then creating the processes through things like Zapier or what have you to get them connected and to get the agent working out of them. That is a longer conversation to have. I don't have enough time to get into that, but there is a lot of value in custom building your own. However, I would say if the features, as mentioned, if the features you are already using, whatever CRM or email adds those agent features, use those. I would say use those tools as well. So the honest truth about Rung 3, right? There's a lot of hype here, and I want to make sure I am giving you guys the reality, right? And as mentioned, AI is excellent at the repetitive work. People are better at the complicated work, right? So the things, the judgment calls, the nuances, the emotional ones, those are all really great for humans to do, or really, it's the things that only humans can do. And even Klarna, which is one of the examples we said before, pushed too far, too fast. And they, through the research that was drafted through that, there was cases where the AI really struggled on complex cases, and they had to bring humans back. So to take a lesson from that, it isn't don't do it. It's know where the line is, right? It's not a weekend project. It really takes a lot of planning. There's going to be a multi-step, multi-system way to build it, but in the end, it can be very valuable. I think if anyone's, promising full automation overnight, they're not being honest. This stuff takes a lot of time. As mentioned, it can be very valuable for your team, but it's going to take some real planning and for you to learn or work with someone who knows how to set up these systems. One thing you can do if you want to start on getting to Rung 3 would be to name it. So name that one task or tasks that you really feel can be done through automation through AI. You don't have to solve it. I think just identifying what those tasks are is a really great place to start. After that, you can really start to think about potentially if the features you are going, or the software you are currently using, will enable some automation features or agent features that can handle those things, or if going the custom route is the choice for you. So you're not behind, you're early. So back to kind of where we started, about 80%, 81 are still at the really bottom rung. And about 7% have started to climb up that rung. And those numbers are of nonprofits using AI, right? So that's not bad news. That means you're early, you're not behind. The field is wide open. You don't have to get to all rungs right away. One step up from where you are is just a really great place to start. to reiterate, rung 1, paste the draft, ask for the weak points. Rung 2, build one shared workspace, give it to your team. Rung 3, name one task to automate someday. That's the climb. Pick your next rung. Take one step this quarter, and you'll be amazed how far up you'll be next year. Thank you. And I will open up to questions now.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby. Lots of great information in there. There were a few questions that came up. One was, do you have any tips for getting buy-in from like your executive team or leadership team on adopting this AI?
Yeah, absolutely. To get some buy-in from your board or from leadership, who might be hesitant, I think one really good way is don't lead with AI. I think AI, as we mentioned, has a lot of hype, or people are feeling a bit overwhelmed or confused by it. So I think what's really great is to lead with some of the pain they might feel. So if they're not understanding some of the reports or the numbers, or there's late closes, I think you lead with that, and you start to talk about how to close some of those gaps, which we mentioned before is that having AI do a ton of your financial or legal work is not the right route, but it's really great at analysis, right? So if that's some of the gaps that your leadership or your board is feeling, that might be a great place to start and say, hey, we know that these reports have been a little bit messy, or we've been having late closes. There's this feature that we can use to do X, Y, and Z, or to analyze X, Y, and Z that will help us close this gap. Also, you can start with like a really low risk task, like, hey, like, it's taking us 3 hours to do grant drafts. We really want to help our team out or make the grant drafting more efficient. We can do it by X, Y, and Z. So lead with the problem, solution, and then present the solution. I think one thing is also to name any concerns after too. So, I think if you start to talk about AI, I think it's really important for you to present that you understand the risk around it. So privacy risk, and understand how to mitigate that stuff. I think people think about people's jobs, right? Those type of things. So I think it's really good to showcase that you understand those risks, right? Also, the human in the loop. I think that's really important to really kind of showcase that. You're thinking about that. You're keeping a human in the loop, and that there's always going to be a person that approves, right?
Awesome, sweet. Next one's more around like clean data. If our records are scattered across like Google Drive, spreadsheets, someone's inbox, sort of where can our organization start on cleaning that up?
Yeah, I think that can feel very overwhelming. Like, hey, like we got to clean everything up before we jump into AI. I think it's better to start and come with the mentality of don't fix everything at once, and because I think that could stall orgs, right? I think start with one thing at a time. Start to clean it. Start to use AI. As is, it's going to get better as your data gets better. So let's say, you have things scattered across multiple places. I think the first step would be to map it all out and start to pick one thing to clean up, right? So you map it out, you make a quick inventory, where things live, who owns it, how often it changes, and then start to figure out how you're going to clean that up, or how you want to clean that up, right? So one thing that's going to be really important is that you pick one source of truth. So if you're looking at donor data or financial data or what have you, really where's that source of truth, and tie up everything around that source of truth. Again, don't try to tackle it all at once. map it out, pick one thing, start to clean it, use AI in the meantime, actually use AI to help you clean it up. So you're great at organizing things or planning things out like that. So I think that is important, or that's the way to handle it, right?
Cool. Alrighty. Yeah, I think that was all the questions that came up. But yeah, appreciate you taking the time and hope to have you and your organization on again in the future.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to.
Thanks for watching. We hope you learned some valuable information on how to use and adopt AI at your organization. If you had a question about the content or would like to chat about Boundless Analytics and Finance services, feel free to reach out using the information provided on the screen. Also, if your organization uses the Google Suite, you can get Google Workspace for nonprofits free, and it now includes the Gemini app at no cost. Register at google.com/nonprofits to get started. Thanks again, and we will see you next time.